From the backstretch at Saratoga, this is Loose on the Lead with Steve Bick and Seth Merrow. Loose on the Lead is sponsored by
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead on another Sunday morning, a beautiful Sunday morning from live from Saratoga and back in his regular spot after the sojourn down to the Jersey Shore last week. Steve Bick, good morning.
Seth, good morning. I'm sorry I left
Did you
you.
get a new pair of glasses?
These are fairly new, yes.
I like those.
Thank you.
I just noticed them. I
Thank
didn't
you.
notice them when you sat down. Stylish. As always.
Oh, boy. There's a revelation.
Welcome back.
What were the odds?
Welcome back.
Nice tie, by the way. You like that one?
I debated.
You like that? I love that. That was one of my favorites.
I debated on this.
I should have brought you one.
But speaking of Steve Bick, before we get into anything else, give us some thoughts. You got one in today, third race today.
We don't. We're scratch.
Okay.
We're scratch.
All right.
I mean, who knew the thing was going to come up as a listed stake? You got to be kidding. You got horses. It's the crazy. That's the craziest 40,000 non-two in history. You got literally 4.5 allowance horses that are just being either not necessarily given away, but they're being offered up, looking for wins. So
Field
no
of 12
thanks.
with two also eligible.
We'll wait for something more reasonable.
All right, sounds good. We'll watch for Kid Chocolate a little bit later on. Why don't we jump right in, because we have guests coming up. Jim Bond will join us a little bit later, but I did want to touch on the human side of things, just because it's been interesting the first couple of weeks. And I pulled up the Equibase stats last night on both the trainer and the jockey side. Joel Rosario, currently at the top, jocks 13. The two Ortiz brothers sitting second at 12. And then there's a four-way tie for fourth, Castellano, Caffleone, Velasquez, and Manny Franco. But on the trainer side, Christophe Clement, 2 ahead of Chad Brown, who's 2 ahead of Todd Pletcher. Linda Rice and Bill Mott make up the top 5. But Rosario and Clement, and because they have teamed up together, they have helped each other out, obviously, move up this list, but sitting on the top of their respective trainer and jock stats.
The Clement storyline is really amazing, and he's hitting it with everything. And, of course, that included that nice 2-year-old last week. Had Chris on radio as well this weekend. He's got stake wins. He's got allowance wins, maiden wins, dirt, short, long. Everything is firing. And listen, why not?
10 wins and 25 starts.
Yeah,
He's shaking his hand wearing an asbestos glove.
Well, when you got horses like Decorated Invader that are probably going to end up winning, 2 stakes up here, arguably the best 3-year-old turf horse in the country, in this country. There may be a horse in another country north of the border that we'll talk about in a minute. Cheryl's Spite for Chuck Fipke and Roger Atfield, now 2 for 2. That win yesterday. We're going to see that in a little bit. But no, Clement absolutely hitting on all cylinders. It doesn't necessarily have the numbers that Chad does, when it comes to starters and when we look through the whole course of the 40 days. But absolutely, just respecting everything that Clement is putting out. There's also been some people under the radar, including our trainer guest this morning, Jim Bond. And Bond, whose horses, before he broke through this week, his horses were running well, and then the wind started to come. Ends up with, I think, 3 over the last 3 days. So Jimmy Bond is going to join us. Should be fun. But beside the obvious that you touched on, I
had Ray Handel in here the other day, and he won with his very first-time starter. Talked about it on the show, Irish Constitution, and then he's got the American Pharaoh in this afternoon that he liked as well.
Well, and Mike Maker, and I was down at Monmouth. That win, the win of Aquaphobia in the UN. It's amazing with these turf routers that Maker, claims for high prices, $50,000, $62,500, $75,000, $100,000, and so they're quality horses. He's not remaking nickel claimers, but it's really astounding. And yesterday, actually, I think that horse got a little lucky. There was that scramble.
Pulled away
in the ninth.
Turbo
Drive.
Yeah.
Turbo Drive.
Knocked me out of my pick.
That could have been, Jimmy Jazz could have won. There were like 6 horses that could have won that race. Yeah. But Maker's amazing. Really amazing.
All right, let's get to some stakes recaps because we have the 2 up here. We'll take a look at Maximum Security, but I wanted to go with, one of, obviously, the story horses over the last few years. 2-time ARC winner, Enable, her seasonal debut this year. She ran second, so you always wonder about these these mares. 6-year-old mare, she kind of lost interest. Well, and it's kind of hard to tell with the size of the field, but we'll watch the stretch run yesterday from the King George and Queen Elizabeth at Ascot. And again, it scratched down to a field of only 3, but she did it the way you would want. She's sitting second here, and Frankie Dettori is not really asking. When he does ask, he just pulls away and kind of laughs at this field. Again, it's a scratch-reduced field of only 3, but the ones behind her were okay, Japan and Sovereign, but she gets it done here, kind of indicating she's back, and they're going to be looking for a 3rd ARC a little bit later this year. And this was her third win in this race, first horse to do that, her 11th Group 1 overall, so Enable back yesterday at Ascot.
How about the way Frankie Dettori looked back at Japan? It was kind of a goodbye Charlie kind of a moment. Pretty funny. It's just nice that just nice that she's back running, and even when she didn't win earlier this year, it's not as if she didn't run well. And they're looking down. Obviously, they're looking down at the long-term goal. And it's just a delight to have a horse like this that comes back. For 3 years, and could easily have been added to the Juddmonte Broodmare band. Enable.
Now to take a shot with a mare at a 3rd ARC is just incredible. To win this race 3 times is incredible for her. Yeah, it's fun that she's back. All right, let's get to a couple of stakes up here because and this one. We'll watch the stretch. Or actually, if you can pull up, because I also called for the whole race. Maybe show the entire race of the Vanderbilt yesterday, because obviously the storyline was when John Embriel said the first fraction, 23-1. You were kind of like, with this quality of runners, this race is over. So Volatile gets out after the late scratch of Lexingtonian. Whitmore had broken through the gate and reloaded, so that was a storyline as well. But Volatile takes them all the way around. Again, with fractions 23 and change, 46 and change, 58, final time 109 and 3. But as I say, once that first fraction was put up, you kind of knew with the quality of Volatile, going to be tough to reel Volatile in.
And just the ease, you could just tell right away, just the ease with which the lead is gained. And if I'm not mistaken, Ricardo Santana was 0 for the meet up till
I think that's right
for this race.
Yeah.
He was 0 for 16 through Friday or 18, and so nice for Ricardo to kind of shake off the doldrums. But nobody's going to press him, because the assumption is if you press him, you're going to kill yourself at the same time. I mean, you could just tell early on here there was no pressure, and look how easily he's going now. A little bit of ask by Ricardo. Whitmore, you've got to just admire, and Ron Moquette has kept him so good for so long. And look at him plugging away here. And it looked at a certain point before the 8th pole that maybe he was going to give Volatile a little bit of a fight. Very excited for one of our sponsors, Hillendale, John Sakura. This is a Hillendale bred. Violence has reignited his stallion career. He's one of only 2 stallions this year with 2 Grade 1 winners, and Volatile for 3 Chimneys. And for the Phoenix people, very nice. And, this is the problem with these narrow fields in serious graded stakes, because you just don't necessarily get, not that this wasn't a nice performance, and the same thing with Enable and whatever. We'll talk about maximum security and mid-court in a minute. But if you don't have a variety of styles and you don't have authentic pace pressure and, 6, 7, 8 horses minimum to really mix it up, these horses aren't necessarily getting tested. I saw there was some chatter about, how excited are we supposed to get? Well, get as excited as you want. This is a serious horse, and we'll have to wait for, either the Forgo or the Vosburg or whatever they're going to do on their way to the Breeders' Cup. But he's a serious sprinter, and just lightly raced still, obviously, and Steve Asmussen said in the winner's circle, this is, when you talk about the next career, this is a nice race to put on. So regardless of when it comes to the breeding career, they're not going to list the fractions. They're going to list a Grade 1 win at Saratoga. Interestingly, speaking of there's some issue about the timing. We're waiting to see something because the buyer figure, the initial, the preliminary figure was a 99, and I don't know where the camera is that I'm supposed to be looking at here. Is this one? Yeah?
No, the red light.
I don't think so, but then I'm seeing over here, that's what it feels like, but then...
it's the red light.
Yeah, all right. They originally gave him a 99 buyer, and now that number's been taken down. So I'm not sure. I think the timing is being reevaluated, and we'll see. But listen, there'll be other tests, and down the road, this is some nice horse. Period.
Got the stretch run to the Ballston Spa. I put Sister Charlie on top, but I said I did a podcast earlier this week. I had Dave Grenig on Thursday, and I said, if I'm playing pick plays, I'm playing Starship Jubilee, Canadian Horse of the Year last year, and hats off to Kevin Attard for coming back down with this one. Starship Jubilee, the number 6 horse, gets it done. First start of the year. Sister Charlie a little short. She winds up third, but as I said, congratulations to the team from Woodbine, Kevin Attard and company, taking the shot down here and getting it done with Starship Jubilee.
This is some nice mare, and the story goes back obviously a few years. A $16,000 claim off of Navarro, and then just up and first against some restricted company, a couple of Sunshine Million type victories, then into graded company. Now 8 graded stake wins. The Grade 1 E.P. Taylor win last year. It's an amazing story. There is something we got to look into. She was supposed to, she was going to be sold to be a broodmare, and now has continued to race. And when I get Kevin Attard on, I want
7 years old.
Yeah, she's just scary good. And this was a place, and I saw where Chad was very content with Sister Charlie's. This is a distance that is short for her, off of the layoff, and there wasn't going to be a lot of pace pressure. There wasn't going to be necessarily, the rabbit style, even though there was, somebody out there, setting a pace. She ran fine, and she's like Enable. She's working toward an end of the season goal. Starship Jubilee, though, really cool story. And actually, one of the other Attards had a really good win in one of the races of the cross country. There was a turf sprint, and who can keep track of all the Attards?
Sid.
No.
Not Sid.
Not Tino. Not Kiko. There was there's another one. Jamie, I think. Jamie Attard. I think Jamie Attard has. You remember Signature Red?
Yes. Yeah.
This is the same. This is the same barn and Hierarchy, Red Hierarchy, who was very impressive yesterday, winning that allowance. If you didn't see it, he's another horse out of Woodbine, 2 for 2, along with Spike Sherrill. Pull that race up. It was the nightcap at Woodbine, and it was a leg of that very challenging cross country pick 5 yesterday.
I think I saw paid about $1,200, something like that. Decent little payoff in the cross country.
It was 50 cents was, I think, $5.76, something like that. Yeah.
All right, let's go out to Del Mar. About 9:30 last night, the San Diego, the return of Maximum Security now in the Bob Baffert barn. The return since the race out at Saudi Arabia in February. Ding dong battle. It's going to be number 5 Maximum Security, and I think after we watch the race, we have a shot of the photo. I was surprised the photo of the margin was as large as it was. I thought this was right on the wire, but Maximum Security does get the nose victory. Midcourt runs second in here, and it was interesting. Early in the race, as they went into the backstretch, it almost looked like Abel Cedillo kind of checked the horse a little bit as the two went by. The two other horses went by, and so in the lane gets it done. As I say, this is a ding-dong battle, and we'll show the photo. And as I say, I was a little bit surprised. To me, it was going to be a whisker. It's a little bit more than that, but gets it done.
It's the camera. The camera angle at Del Mar is a little funky from the roof. So, I mean, you could tell in real time that it looked like he won. Then in slow motion, it was obvious that he won. And then there's your photo. This is going to be it already. It took about 3 minutes for the internet to declare that this is not the same horse, and he was. Recall that Del Mar, it's a heavy, dull surface, and both of these horses, they got 101 buyers. Nothing wrong with that. I thought he ran very well. He's been off 5 months and goes down there. There's no guarantee he's going to like that surface. And he gutted it out. And he's a game horse. He's shown that over and over again. And I would expect that he moves forward off of this. The handicap division benefits tremendously from having him in midcourt. The no-show here was Higher Power, who dropped anchor midway through the race. So people that are declaring, it's amazing. They're declaring, he's not the same horse. So I guess midcourt. I guess midcourt's not the same horse either. Actually, he is. I mean, based on the figures, he absolutely is the same horse. So use that as a measuring stick. I thought this was, quite acceptable a performance. He had every reason to lose. He was penned in there. He didn't have his usual opportunity to run free like he always does. Credit sheriffs for being aggressive and having the instructions to go and take the race to him, and yet Cedillo is on him, somebody that doesn't know the horse really at all, hadn't worked him and never had ridden him. He's known to be a little difficult, a little lazy. And so what exactly was wrong with that effort? I don't get it. I mean, people love to hate this horse, and I understand where it comes from, but all he does is go out and try hard. I don't get the complaints.
Yeah, looking forward to the next start from him, see what we get there. Now that Baffert has
assuming the Pacific Classic.
Yeah.
Now
the Jocks had a run on him, so it'll be interesting to see next time. All right, Jim Bond's in the green room, but you wanted to take a look at that race up at Canada and talk a little bit about that as well, so why don't we take a look at that one?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Spite Sherrill, and if you are unfamiliar, this horse burst on the scene last month, and you can see here he's dueling, by the way, that's one of Gary Barber's Untitled, who they paid a lot of money for, and Spite Sherrill was not being asked at all in here, and just powers away. Look at this. Take a peek under the arm, and goodbye. That's Rafael Hernandez. And boy, oh boy, this is some impressive colt. He's a Spitestown. He was a May foal, so he's given away time to everybody. I know just because he's run at Woodbine twice, people seem to think, he's going to be tough in the Queen's Plate. He's Kentucky bred. He's not an Ontario sired horse. So no Queen's Plate for Spite Sherrill. We'll find out from Roger Atfield what their thoughts are. But, he now has run on grass. He's run on the synthetic. We'll see what else. I mean, he's certainly bred. He's out of Perfect Sherrill. So, turf makes some sense. But being by Spitestown, there's no reason why the dirt, a dirt try has to come at some point. So we'll see. I'm anxious to hear what they're doing, what they're going to do. Mr. Fipke just keeps grinding out terrific horses. This is the Perfect Sherrill, the Breeders' Cup winner that he got with Perfect Soul. He's got this domestic North American breeding program that he's created, and it's amazing. He just keeps getting nice horses.
They're kind of diamonds in the rough. Yeah, see what
Whoa,
I did there?
hey now! Oh, zing! Rim shot. Seth Merrow, everybody. He'll be here all week. Tip your servers.
All right, let's take a break. As they say, Jim Bond is in the green room, so off to a really great start at the meet. Looking forward to talking to Jim after the break, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Albany County, an incredible destination to live, work, and play, with easy connections to more than a dozen cities from our vibrant modern airport. It's a short trip downtown to a hive of culture and amusement, from world-class shows at the newly renovated Times Union Center to reliving the past at the New York State Museum. From outdoor recreation to shopping to nightlife, Albany County has something for everyone. We'll see you soon.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
We're back on the backstretch at Saratoga, and Loose on the Lead continues with Jim Bond joining us. And Jim, his horses were running well right from the start of the meet, and then some trips to the end zone, as it were. 3 winners in the last few days, and Jim Bond joins us. Good morning. Congratulations.
Thank you, Steve.
Nice
Seth,
work.
thank you.
Nice work.
Thank you.
We'll start with Saratoga right away, because this is a really nice horse, and you're being very patient and you're getting rewarded.
Well, he's, like I say, he's got his issues. He's not a Belmont horse, okay, so I kind of use him for here, and I use him for Aqueduct, and just trying to give him breaks in between, and when he shows up, he shows up.
We're gonna run that. We got Saratoga from Friday.
He'll be the number 3 horse when we take a look at that, so keep that in mind.
Here he is, and I tell you, for whatever reason, in terms of getting a value on him, he's a horse that that savvy horse players gravitate to.
Yes, yeah. I thought he was a little too close on the backside. I was worried, and then I saw the fractions, and Luis rode him perfect. And I like to see this horse covered up personally, but he's an awfully nice horse.
New York, where he's facing Open Company, but I'm curious. You mentioned he's not a Belmont horse. How'd you figure that out?
I ran him. And he just doesn't handle Belmont well, the big turns, and he just doesn't handle it. And so find out your weaknesses and
talk to that. And I want to ask you too, because with so much grass racing here, and with the the ReFashion main track, and I'm curious. I mean, what as it was being laid down, one of the things we all wondered is how is it going to affect the way the race flows. What has been your feel so far? I mean, the surface has gotten rave reviews.
It's tremendous. The track is. I mean, you've got to give Glenn Klozak and his crew, all the, I mean, it's just unbelievable, because I was not really happy about 10 days before the meet with it, and they just kept getting better and better. I would see the Oklahoma track underwater when we got a rainstorm, and this track was dry, and I said, they're never going to get enough water on this track, and it's going to be cuppy, and, it scared me. And they started putting more silts and more clay on it, and they tightened it up, and my riders kept saying, it's getting better, boss, and it really is. I mean, the horses, knock on wood, have been coming back very, very well off of it, and it's exciting. And a horse like Saratoga, he just doesn't like it kind of dry and cuppy, and I mean, he just skipped over it. And I mean, you don't like to be overconfident, but I knew that we were in a pretty good situation there. So
over the years, Jim, because you've been training on this and across the street with the barn for years, it's an interesting part of the equation. Is how tracks change, how they morph. John Nehru explained to me years ago about the aging cycle, whether it's the base and fissures in the base, and the way a track will find soft spots, and that you got to pick up the cushion, recondition constantly, actually, and have to be on generally on alert for problems. I mean, this is
for sure.
We've seen that at racetracks across the country, including, of course, Aqueduct. We had 2012. We get these states where the track is aging and something goes sideways. How do you evaluate your horses? And you talk about them coming back well. Explain what you watch for, and a track. Certain tracks will take energy from a horse, and other tracks will give energy back to the horse.
Yeah, it's a daily play, because the weather and humidity up here, has so much to do with all racetracks. People don't realize is our winters, our winters can be very tough, so if you get a deep freeze, I mean, it really hits the base, it hits everything, and so these poor racetrack managers, they only have a certain window to have these tracks ready, and a month or two sometimes is not enough. And so I'm lucky enough to be here all from end of April to almost November, and I watch how they work this track, and I'm actually allowed to jog on the outside to get to Oklahoma, so I can see the changes, and I watch them watering it late in the morning if I have to walk around, and it's sometimes it's a positive for myself, because I know where when I can work a horse and when I can't, when they have little issues.
What kind of horses do you send across the street versus ones that you...
Bad-footed horses always go across the street, for me personally. Yeah, it's a natural surface, and there's probably no better, the man-made, we just screw things up, I hate to say that, but that's what my wife tells me. So, bottom line is that, to me, I think that surface over there, that and Payson Park are the two best training surfaces in the world.
That's interesting. When you say bad-footed horses, talking about horses with thin hoof walls and tender frogs and horses glue-ons. I usually racetracks have to be very firm and for the afternoon racing, so it's just harder on those type of horses. So you can have a little more luck, I'd say, here.
Do you ever bring horses back here to Clare?
All the time. Yeah. We had a new acquisition to the barn. And she was kind of a light-bodied filly, and I know the other trainer's a tremendous trainer. He's leading trainer most of the time here, Chad, and we just kind of lightened up the load, and basically she lived on Clare Court, and like I say, it worked. We tried to
talking to trainers. They say it's a mental thing too, because it's a little bit different. It's a different scenario back here.
I believe 90% of training horses is mental. It's just like a great employee. You got a great employee. He's going to be 10-15 minutes early. He's going to work probably through his lunch and afterwards. and those horses are far and few between. So if you can get them where they want to do it, okay, you know, if they have the natural talent, all we can do is screw it up.
and you know, since we have you in here this morning, been asking everybody the past couple of months, really, I had them on the phone or here. Talk a little bit about the quarantine, the shutdown period, how that changed up things you do.
I'll tell you, it was very hard because we just didn't know when. So you're trying to keep these horses at 60, 70% throttle, okay? And do you give them gas? Do you not work them, okay? But when it opens, okay, you've got owners and ourselves included, okay? The bills are coming, they're getting bigger and bigger, okay? And you just say, look, I'm never going to make that steak if I don't have something here and I don't have something there. And if I don't have them ready, if they open up May 1st, they don't May 15th, May 23rd, and it just kept, and it was getting hard. It was, I mean, for everyone, and anybody that was sat through this, okay, in New York, they were, because New York's expensive. I mean, it's just, it's the way it is, and it's, so, a lot of owners, I mean, they had it really rough, and a lot of trainers had it pretty rough.
And talk a little bit about the difference Saratoga this year as compared to other. The wins still look good on the resume, the Saratoga wins, but it's a different experience.
There's nothing like winning at Saratoga. I mean, I just can't explain it to anyone, okay? It's just when you walk down to that winner's circle, it is everything for me, okay? But saying that, okay, my wife and I sat there. We won the 8th race yesterday. We had a horse in a later race. And we decided to stay and watch the stakes, okay? And they have a nice area for the owners. They've kind of put out there for horses that are in for that day. But saying that, okay, you just look around. And my wife filmed it actually, and just see how there's just nobody. It's eerie, It's sad because the fans make New York, okay? I don't care what sport it is, but New York fans are by far the best. They're going to call you out when you screw up, and they will give you the golden, when you win.
Well, speaking of the win, let's watch as Prioritize wins this second level allowance and these mile and eighth races, which are a staple up here. And obviously the big difference is the mile and an eighth one turn downstate versus the 2-turn mile and an eighth here. And watch for Prioritize, who is sitting, very comfortably, although, seemingly needing a seam. Talk about the trip in here now.
Eric rode a great race on this horse, okay? This horse, if you look at him, he's covered. I mean, he brought probably half the racetrack home with him. But he is as gutsy as you can see. I mean, he just, he wants it more, that's all. But the horse of Todd's ran a great race. You got to give Todd's horse coming off the layoff. That horse will come back, and I'd have to put a circle around that horse next time.
Well, this is second off the layoff. You talk about the winter and the break. Last seen going a mile at Aqueduct on a wet track and ran well. Got beat by Grump's Little Tots, which was pre
Lone Speed that day.
Exactly, and comes back with that terrific effort at Belmont. It's All Relevant was, again, you were chasing him home. Right. Here, this was a little bit more of a of a contested scenario. Yep. And as you mentioned, Eric, didn't panic when he was down inside, needing that seam to materialize, and then he explodes. And he seems, at age 5, and he's a gelding, so there hasn't been any real rush with him. It seems, and he's a Tisway. You can talk about going out and getting him. Spendthrift bred him. And for you and Mr. Clifton, it's got to be fun to have a steadily developing Tisway that's running 90 buyers and maybe demanding a stake try.
Yeah, like I say, you sit down with Mr. Clifton and kind of talk it over. But the Tisways actually, I think, get better as long as you can keep them sound. Okay, Tisway himself at 5 was amazing, and right. So like I say, as they say, just don't screw it up.
Well, and Jimmy, we could actually bring this up, and it's interesting. It's a bit of a blessing, to get a horse like a Tisway, and you think about Barons and others actually that you've had, and then there's the marketplace after their careers, and they go out and they become stallions, and they aren't necessarily stallions whose aptitudes and pass down ability to their get is going to be good for the marketplace. And in this day and age, if people pay any money for a horse, they expect that in 3 starts they got to get their purchase return price back. Right. If you're patient with this kind of a progeny, you'll get rewarded, but it's very hard in the commercial environment to advertise that.
Correct. It's 100% correct. I mean, I've got some Tisway 2-year-olds that I want to tell you something. They're so exciting, okay? They worked yesterday. I worked 2 more this morning here, okay? But again, okay, I just know the pedigrees, okay? And it was interesting because I had a horse named Devious Course. I beat Thunder Gulch as a 2-year-old with him the second start of his life, okay, in the Nashua. I came back and I won the Cigar Mile with him. But that horse, okay, I never to realize he was by a stallion called Crafty Prospector. Crafty Prospector was a very precocious type stallion, and his 2-year-olds used to come out, but he never had a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. And this horse, okay, we put him away after 2 starts. He came back. That horse went at 4 and 5, won the Cigar Mile. And so it's, but there's different advantages to training, what clients want. Okay, some clients want to make a stallion Coolmore, for instance. Okay, they are, let's get them out there. Let's find out. We need to get a stallion again, and so it's a little different paths we all take.
Oh, Will's Way.
Will's Way.
You can
Same
bring
way.
him into the discussion.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about a horse from yesteryear in a second. Prioritize and Saratoga going to run back certainly before the end of the meet.
I hope so. Yeah,
and you decide if there's
it's the right spot for him. Like I say, we sure like to because he seemed to like the racetrack and
exactly.
So like I say, and the money's here and we want to keep running. So.
Just before we move on from Saratoga to Bond Racing Horse, talk a little bit about the partnership because I know you have some locals and you like to stay local and so just push out a little bit of folks who are thinking about maybe getting into the game.
Thank you. My wife and I, my wife, we have a Bond Racing as a partnership. We keep 50% just about of everything, and we manage the whole thing. There's no management fees. The bottom line is there's a lot of people locally have gotten in 5-10% type people, and it's really exciting because the last couple of weeks, I think with no other sports kind of on television, they're getting tired of watching replays. So horse racing is fantastic, and people have been calling and they've been buying some nice horses, and we won one for one new partnership the other day, and it's nice. It's a lot of fun, and it's introducing them so they don't get hurt. Because it's expensive to have horses, and it's very risky, but it's a thrill. It's a thrill and a half.
And if folks haven't ever visited or aren't familiar, you have the farm, Stillwater, right?
Yes,
and they can go online and check out. Yeah, you have a nice little flyover and whatnot. Check out the farm and everything.
It's
so
very, very nice.
And Jim, 2 questions actually, and we're going to ask about Ronaldi, who is coming up this week, and. Actually, we've got a race from last year when he won the Stallion Series race, so we can watch that and talk about his prospects. Ronaldi at a nice price too. You can see him there.
So this day,
striking the lead.
This day here, it was my youngest son was getting married, so it was about 3 minutes to post, and the priest was giving the last vows here. I've got my little phone, okay, and I'm like, hurry this thing up, will you guys? I want to see this horse run. And thank God he won because I don't know if I'd have handled it very well. But it was an exciting day, and he's a nice horse.
Well, you're putting together this kind of a package group. How much of this is in response to the overall ownership environment and the necessity to basically be involved in your horses that way, to take a stake, and you've done that going back for many years. In fact, some ways you were maybe ahead of that curve, but it's gotten to be obvious when you see so many horsemen's names involved in the ownership. Jerry Hollendorfer was somebody else who did this, where it was very clear that he was taking these horses and then taking on partners. He was buying them, let's say, at sales, and then knowing that he was going to campaign them, and then took on from a circle of owners.
Right. Personally, I don't think there could be a better situation if you have a trainer, okay, that owns 50% of a horse, okay, because I don't like to lose money. I mean, I love horses, and I'm going to always try not to hurt a horse, but they also need to perform, or they need to go to the farm and retire, or whatever it may be. And so to me, personally, okay, is, if you go to a sale and your trainer's there, he's buying what he wants to hopefully train, okay? And if you're not, you might not want to buy that horse because, it might just not work out well. And so, I think there's a lot of advantages because, we kind of know the right and the wrongs, and when it's time to retire, we're going to retire him and do the right thing for the horse. And, that's just the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, you got an iron in the fire.
Exactly, yeah. And again, I don't, we don't like losing money either. So and the game's hard. So you need to dot your I's and cross your T's every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
This race, by the way, for everybody, comes up Thursday, and Ronaldi, as well as Evaluator, too, who has been gelded.
He has been gelded. Evaluator's doing awesome. It's a shame both these horses have to run together, okay, because they work together, actually, the other morning, okay? And, they're just training like monsters, but unfortunately, that's kind of the way it is, and, it's different owners, and, there's a partnership in Ronaldi and some very nice people that own the other horse, Evaluator, and we both got to open the gates got to open and they got to go around.
This is a nice group that came together. This might as well be. It's a $67,000 purse, but this could have
there's a stake.
Could have an L by it.
Yeah,
right.
Sure could.
Very nice. I promised a treat when we get somebody like Jimmy that we could look back. We take advantage, and we're gonna. Maybe we put the video up in a second, but I want to introduce it. I guess if I introduce it, Jim's going to know what direction we're going in. I do a thing, and we've been doing a thing since the pandemic on the show on radio. Horses that time forgot, and there's so many horses who, for one reason or another, their exploits and their success have been obscured by time, and some of it is just geldings that get forgotten about, or horses that didn't have big stallion careers, others that got hurt. And something happened last night and this morning as I was watching the replays of Maximum Security, and I saw that pink jacket with the black diamond belt of Gary West. And you think he was a tough owner now? We're going to watch Buddha, and he is going to involve himself in his last career start in one of the best Wood Memorials ever run that nobody ever talks about. When great races and terrific horses are brought up, talk about Buddha, Jimmy, because it's not fair. And what about this ride by Pat Day?
Well, Pat Day is just unbelievable.
He's the number one horse by
on the rail.
On the rail. This horse was amazing. He had so much talent. He had the worst feet that I've ever had in a horse. He's on bridle song, and that's sometimes with bridle songs you get bad feet. And we did everything. This horse was amazing. And the night before, 2 days before the Derby, he was a favorite for the Kentucky Derby. Pat Day had a little party at his house, and you go to Pat Day's house, and his basement is a museum. It's like the museum over here of trophies. It's just unbelievable. It's beautiful. And short story is he, after we're all ready to leave, and the West were here, and I think says, this will be the winner of the Kentucky Derby. Yeah. And there was no doubt. Unfortunately, the day before, he just came out of the stall not right. He had some wall separation, kind of like your nail coming up, and it was over. That's all. And this horse was guts. He was fast.
We should mention the floor horse is a little horse called Medaglia d'Oro.
Yes. Well, and Gary Stevens is bearing down on Sunday break, and Sarland had made up ground as well. But here's Medaglia d'Oro in the middle, Buddha on the rail, plugging away.
It was special horse.
And here's Sunday break, making headway on the outside, the three of them to the wire in the 2002 Wood Memorial.
It doesn't get better than that.
No. Well, you were also involved in a pretty good three horses on the wire, three noses on the wire Travers as well. But one of the things I'll never forget, that was my second Derby at Churchill, and my working with the barbecue, Carolina Barbecue, and Barry, we were watching the race, and here's War Emblem out,
on the
lead, making the turn, and my partner Barry Fry says, "Can he wire this field?" I said, "Yeah, because Buddha isn't in here." I learned a lesson, Jim, from that about re-handicapping a field after scratches. because the pace scenario, if anybody thinks that War Emblem was going to wire that field with Buddha in the race, they're nuts.
Yeah.
And maybe Perfect Drift gets by the two of you, but there's no way to know.
No.
But it absolutely changed the complexion of that Derby.
Yeah, well, I looked yesterday, and at the Vanderbilt 23-1 the first opening quarter. I'm thinking, where are we? I just like come in, So it does. It changes, and it's scary when when a scratch does come, and you better have your head on.
I had to. I rather than an obvious Saratoga horse, I wanted to do something different, and Buddha just doesn't get brought up enough for what he was.
And amazing, really amazing. He was probably one of my best. I think Will's Way was by far my best. Had the most heart of any horse I ever trained. Barron's had the most talent. He was a little bit of a cheater on me. But he could run. I mean, his Dubai race against Dubai Millennium, who's arguably probably Sheikh Mohammed's best horse. I think
best
ever.
of his generation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the top five.
But Buddha, oh my God, what a horse he was. So very fortunate. Yeah.
Whenever we have this discussion about re-handicapping races, it's one of the most important lessons you can absorb. Especially with a race like the Derby, where everybody's been talking about it for months. And we've got ingrained in your head is a certain scenario. Well, so-and-so is going to be out there winging, and there's going to be prep, and then all of a sudden it's a completely different scenario. And I'll never forget. I'm watching on the backstretch. I'm like, this horse is going to wire this field.
Edgar Prado, when he used to ride for us a lot, we always had saying
he broke the maiden on right. Did he break the maiden on Buddha?
On Buddha, and he couldn't ride for some reason. He couldn't ride him back. That's how Pat Day got on him. But interesting, Edgar and I go into the paddock, says, "Here's Plan A, B, and if we get down to ST, we forget about it. We're in trouble." And that's horse racing.
I love it. Jimmy, thank you so much for this.
Before we let go, though, I saw you and your wife Tina yesterday at the track, and I compliment you both on the mesh.
Oh, the 07 mesh, yes.
07.
We've got them here. So.
The double
He does the same.
Very good.
I love it. I love it.
But I think it was awfully nice of have us on again. Thank you.
Best of luck the rest of the way, and you mentioned how many 2-year-olds are going to start between now and
We're not going to have any 2-year-olds starting at this meet. No, we just didn't get them started enough. We're behind like a lot of the outfits are right now with them, but that's okay. A lot of them are Tisway, so we'll see them next year.
Outstanding.
Jim, appreciate the visit.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the very good start. Keep it rolling.
We're going to try.
All right.
Thank you.
Trainer Jim Bond. Again, visit the website. And if you're interested, maybe participate in a little bond racing as well. We'll take a break. We'll come back and kind of wrap things up. For
I got my man.
Oh, one more guest. Very good. So we do have one more guest coming up. Loose on the Lead continues right after this. Stay tuned.
Where's the best place to find your favorite teams, your favorite food, daily drink specials, and wagering on live horse racing? Legends Field Sports Bar, 711 Central Avenue, Albany. Get your game on day or night with 75 flat-screen TVs, tournament-style pool tables, a private banquet room, and live horse racing. So if someone asks you, where's the best sports bar in the Capital Region? Tell them Legends Field Sports Bar, inside the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
We're back on Loose on the Lead, and an extra special treat because Dave Hill is going to join us from downstate, and was hoping and looking forward this summer to having Dave come up to Saratoga to promote his book, The Vapors, which came out earlier this month. A long gestation period to get the book, and for those that have listened to the radio, they've heard Dave for years as he worked on it. He returned home to Hot Springs from Brooklyn and put everything, really, heart and soul, his family history, and Hot Springs' very interesting and colorful past, and The Vapors, which is hit left and right on best-selling lists immediately. Dave Hill joins us. Dave, good morning.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Excellent, and just delighted to get a couple of minutes to check in and see how the book is going. You know, you were so looking forward, obviously, to a promotion tour and really kind of getting out and meeting people and book signings, but it sure seems like you're taking advantage of the Zoom technology, and it seems like every night you're on somebody's show.
Yeah, you know, I in some ways it's a bit double-edged because if I had gotten to do an in-person book tour, I wouldn't have gotten to do nearly as many events as I've done online, virtually, through Zoom. So, you know, I don't get to be there in person, but I get to, you know, speak to more folks probably.
Give everybody, for those that haven't heard you with me on radio, the concept, for those that have never been to Hot Springs, and there's plenty of people from Saratoga. They are sister cities in a lot of ways. And there's people that know the Vapors by name, but talk about the concept and what went into the Vapors.
Well, the Vapors tells the story of Hot Springs, Arkansas from the period of about the early 1930s to the late 1960s, and the reason that period is significant is because during that period of time, Hot Springs was essentially the largest gambling operation in America, even though gambling was illegal in Arkansas. And so the book kind of traces that history through the lives of three people. My grandmother, who worked in a lot of these illegal casinos, a man named Dane Harris, who kind of was a local guy who rose the ranks and became the boss, what they call the boss gambler of the town, and a man named Oni Madden, who was a pretty notorious organized crime figure from New York City. He used to run the Cotton Club and was one of the sort of three biggest prohibition gang leaders in New York City in the 1920s. He shows up in Hot Springs in the early 1930s after he gets out of jail for murder and ends up living the rest of his life there and is kind of the mobsman in Arkansas. And so the book traces these three people's lives during that period of time to kind of tell the story of this city during its kind of freewheeling wild days. And how the city kind of built itself up to be such a sort of internationally important resort and part of the international gambling community, and also traces the sort of how that all came to pieces and fell apart in the 1960s, and then led to the growth of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Of course, right now, Hot Springs is really being remade, and a lot of that centers on Oaklawn and Oaklawn's success, Oaklawn's amazing concept, and the Sella family creating the alternate gaming landscape, which has really refashioned racing in a lot of venues and a lot of jurisdictions. And you got to go home for a period, and of course, your work as a writer and a feature, basically a feature writer for magazines like Esquire and GQ and the New Yorker, etc. And of course, you've done some wonderful work for ABR, America's Best Racing, and the opportunity to go back to Hot Springs, take the family, take your kids, and a chance for them to basically see your own personal origins. Talk a little bit about what you think is happening in Hot Springs and how it's a new chapter or the next chapter in the story of the Vapors.
Yeah, we were living in Hot Springs from 2016 into 2017 during that school year, and that was the election where voters in Arkansas passed a law to permit sort of traditional casino gaming in the state, and Oaklawn was going to be one of the beneficiaries of that. But prior to that, Oaklawn already kind of had a bit of a casino because of, maybe this is what you were referring to before, but because of the instant racing innovation, right? This concept that really began at Oaklawn of like coming up with these slot machines that used racing data. But yeah, that we were there when the voters passed that law, and today there's $100 million investment into Oaklawn into developing that casino and also a pretty massive convention center and resort there at the track. So it's really something that I don't think Hot Springs has ever seen since the days of illegal gambling in the 1960s, when $100 million, this type of investment in this type of resort would have been, I mean, there were several of these types of things that were being built in 1962 and 1963, but those all ended up staying empty for many, many decades. So this is sort of I think in a weird way, what's happening in Hot Springs today is a return to, to that type of, it's the city re-embracing gambling as being one of the aspects that that visitors and tourists to Hot Springs enjoy, which they have enjoyed at the racetrack for, many, many generations, but now they're going to get a chance to gamble on more than just the ponies when they come.
And Dave, you mentioned one of the characters earlier in the book as being the mobsman in Arkansas. Who knew the mob in Arkansas went together? But I'm curious, as you wrote the book, you mentioned your grandmother involved. So maybe, and that being your hometown, maybe the story was mostly familiar to you. But I'm wondering, were there any revelations as you wrote the book?
Plenty. I mean, I definitely grew up in Hot Springs knowing the sort of, knowing some of the broad strokes of this history. But what I really knew more was the folklore. I think that there have been stories and legends and myths and folk tales that have been passed down since those days. Not all of them based in truth, right? And so as I researched the book, I definitely discovered things that really kind of went against the grain of what I think a lot of us that grew up in Hot Springs were taught about that city's history, and particularly about that city's relationship to organized crime and the mob. But yeah, it's true that I think what makes this book novel and curious to people is that folks don't associate Arkansas with organized crime or with the mob that exists as we know it existed in bigger cities. But I think you'll see if you read the book that it definitely played a very large role, especially given that after the end of Prohibition, gambling became the mob's biggest source of revenue around the country, and control of gambling was really important to the mob. And Hot Springs being such a large, wide open kind of gambling town, it makes sense that the mob would have had their eyes on it and had been involved in figuring out how to extract their pound of flesh, so to speak, from the gambling profits of Hot Springs.
Dave Hill is with us, whose book, The Vapors, has been just smashingly reviewed and received, including in the New York Times, which essentially said if you liked Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, you'll love The Vapors. And that was a source of incredible praise, obviously, for Dave. And Dave, in terms of, since we've spoken last about a month ago, talk about, what else you're hearing and seeing. And, the book you mentioned, I saw it, I think, on Twitter, Dave Hill 77 to follow, Dave, by the way. I think you said that, Amazon needs a refill of their supply?
Yeah, I guess my understanding is we're into a second printing now, so
wow.
We did really well. It's on back order some places, but I think that it should be available again by the end of the week, because the second printing, I think, is coming. Coronavirus has really disrupted more than just, retail bookstores, and has impacted more than just writers' abilities to go out and read and sign books, or book readers' abilities to walk into bookstores and browse. It also has impacted the sort of supply chain too, right? So the warehouses and the shipping and the printing and production, all of that has been affected by this too. So that means that some people have had to wait a little bit longer to get the book, etc. So, I know there are people who pre-ordered the book who didn't get it until very recently. So that's put a bit of a hitch in the giddy up too. But there are people that have much larger problems right now than that. So I try not to complain about it too much, but that is something that's made it unusual to have released a book this summer.
I would think locals would like the book too, because you kind of alluded to it.
It's a natural.
It's kind of a similar story to Saratoga with the illegal gambling and the horse racing, the hot springs, and so I think locals will find it interesting as well.
Well, and lyrical ballad or Northshire downtown, you would expect the two big bookstores at Saratoga that they'll certainly stock, because they both are heavily gambling, horse racing oriented, and it's also, I tell you, it's about as great a jacket design. The book sort of sits. I mean, obviously it stands this way, but it's got one of my favorite themes, Dave, which is antique postcards and greetings from Hot Springs. In this case, it's got all the little things. It's got the racetrack. It's got the Vapors nightclub itself. Which, by the way, where does that stand in terms of the reopening of the Vapors?
Well, I mean, what's interesting is when I wrote the book, the Vapors was actually a church.
That's right.
But in the time since I wrote it and the book came out, the Vapors had been sold by that church to somebody who is trying to reopen it as a nightclub again. Nice. So, again, I'm not sure where that stands given, the pandemic, but the current owners of the Vapors building want to reopen it and have entertainment in there again. But it had been a church since like the 1990s.
I've got to ask you too, while we have the opportunity, I don't think I've ever brought this up with you. Convince me about the pancake shop, because I don't get it.
Convince you about the what?
The pancake shop. The pancake shop downtown in Hot Springs. Everybody carries on about the pancake shop. It just doesn't. It just doesn't. Not.
I don't know anything about it, but it automatically sounds good. It's pancakes.
Well, it's a popular eatery downtown, especially among the the racetracker set. It's been there forever. Their pancakes are decent. I don't know if you're a pancake guy. If you are, maybe you've had better pancakes. I personally am a waffle person, so
there we go.
I don't particularly love pancakes. They do have a good ham steak there. But really, it's tradition. I mean, you convince me about Compton's in Saratoga, and I'll convince you about the pancake shop. I mean, Compton's is great, Greasy Spoon Diner, but it's as, I hope I'm not being too sacrilegious here, but it's a very popular spot, I imagine, in Saratoga, because it becomes a tradition for people to go there and have breakfast before they go to the track. It's the same situation at the pancake shop. It's right across from the Arlington Hotel downtown, and it's been receiving tourists on their mornings before the racetrack for whatever, like 100 years. So I think that's part of the appeal.
I've basically, what I've done to make it work for me is that I have the coffee cake and a cup of coffee, and I'm good.
And I will make Compton's work for you. I haven't worked this angle in many, many years, but 4:35 a.m. on a Saturday night, all of a sudden everything on the menu looks great. And that is my Compton.
No kidding.
Many Compton's experiences like that. As I say, it's been a long time, however.
Yeah, well, that's why people love Waffle House in Hot Springs.
Now you're talking. Dave, I wish I could say we'll see you up here, and I don't know when we'll see you next, but we're going to keep checking in on the radio with you as well as the Vapors flies off bookshelves, and follow Dave Hill 77 on Twitter. Sign up for his postcards from Hot Springs. His writing is exceptional. This book is just, I'm about a third in now, Dave, reading when I can, and it's everything that was anticipated, and I'm just delighted for you, and I want to introduce it to as many more people as possible.
Well, that means a lot to me, Steve. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Dave Hill, everybody. And find him, and he's doing these regularly. Dave Hill 77 on Twitter, and The Vapors, and you'll find all of his other writing, magazine features, his stuff that he's done for America's Best Racing.
He does a lot of good stuff for APR.
He's been, an absolute treasure. What's fun about Dave is he likes it rough and tumble, down and dirty. He likes the carny life and the grifter scene and magic. It's really just a throwback character and writer. I mean, a Damon Runyon-esque personality, not a character, but a Runyon type of a writer as well. Thrilled that we get a chance to introduce the Vapors to everybody watching. Get yourself a copy of this. You will not be sorry.
As I say, it'll have a nice tie-in for Saratoga people. I think Saratoga has a very, very similar history to Hot Springs. All right, ready to wrap things up? We're late as usual.
We started late.
Yeah, we did not this late though. We will wrap it up. Happy you're back in town. We'll see you next week.
I think so. This went well enough. All right, I'll come back next week.
Very good. Steve Vick, Seth Merrow, loose on the lead on a Sunday morning. We're wrapping up week number 2 here at Saratoga. Again, no fans, but you can enjoy other venues around town with the watch parties. Again, double promotion at the Clubhouse Racebook today. Keep that in mind as well. And again, nighttime thoroughbred racing here on the network and Capital OTB Bet tonight and tomorrow with that extra Del Mar day.
Del Mar card tomorrow, and of course, the midweek action has been spectacular.
Yeah, Indiana Grand,
Canterbury. It's just as engaged.
Yeah, once racing got back, it's been at a. As far as on the track, it's been at a high level. Certainly up here, we've seen.
No doubt.
That was a great one Saturday yesterday with Volatile. All right, let's wrap it up for Loose on the Lead for this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow, Steve Vick. Enjoy the racing this afternoon. Cash a few tickets. As far as the programming here on the network, we'll see you again on Wednesday morning.
From the backstretch at Saratoga, this is Loose on the Lead with Steve Vick and Seth Merrow. Loose on the Lead is sponsored by